information, please usually come to all of us, because I think you had a unique chance today to have on the table all the experts on the project realization of localization project in Russia. Thank you so much.
Usman already announced the Lipetsk event that will be held here 2 days later, but yesterday Lipetsk region has asked me announce their meeting. I'm sure that this event will be useful to whom are interested in the more focused and more detailed information about the regional economic zones. Lipetsk is one of the most successful special economic zone in Russia. So please catch it. Well, during preparations for this event, I thought that as far as I'm an engineer, for me it stays only to tell you about the financial aspects of the investments in terms of engineering. I thought that the thin line between engineering solutions and its effects on the financial results of the investment would be the best to talk, which I all in my professional life took them crucial. I call it financial engineering. Why I called it? It's actually very simple. The two things in a project should go together. One is the numbers that creates the building. The second is the budget of the project. If you hear someone talking in a specific vocabulary, such as height, thickness, tons, cubic meters, kilopascal, megapascal, kilowatt, and thousands and millions man-hours, etc., we call them engineer. If another one mentions about euros, dollars, inflation, growth, central bank, EBITDA, profit, loss, cash flow, and so on, we call them economist. If an engineer would understand the basic finance and an economist would understand the basic engineering, then sure, the world would be better. Now you're probably asking me why I'm showing this table. Don't look at the numbers. Even closer, you cannot understand it. This horrible table is an Excel page to convince the investor that the investor's decisions on the investment are perfect. This is only one part of the page, that there were 35 pages in the same Excel file. And I remember no one could understand which numbers come from where. No matter this, as you know, in consultancy business, the more complicated table you give to the investor, the more you should be paid. I mean, the more complicated storyteller is more expensive. Investor has paid for this table more than $200,000 before my eyes. The next one is a structural drawing prepared by my engineer for our client. You must be sure that each line you see and the numbers written and calculated there near all the lines cost too expensive that will go out from the investor's pocket. We call it value engineering. What I want to say here is that opposite to the previous one, in order not to get the problems harder at further stages, the more you study on scheduling, planning, and drawings, I mean the engineering efforts, that your money will be get back earlier. I know most of you agree with me that the simpler is better. Next one. Here, let me give you some information about the basic things about financial models. Here are the 4 main parameters in financial models. These are the same for every kind of business and every kind of model, and become a standard all over the world now to understand the feasibility of the business. These are payback period, how much time you need to get back your money. The first one is profitability index, that your profit divided by the initial investment amount give you the profitability index. The next one, NPV, present value, you get back your value from the future to now, and the IRR, that checks the rate. Your rate of investment is better or worse than the market level. These are not only critical to evaluate the project from the investor side, but also important for the banks to take decisions whether to give the loan to investor or not. So, if you calculate these numbers correctly, your financial model most probably will not go wrong. Now, I don't want to take your time too much with infinitive and unlimited values of macroeconomical figures, but I want to have your attention a little bit about the values to understand the investment climate in the country where we are living in. I have recently been in a briefing of the head of the Central Bank of Russian Federation, who is the first lady of economics in Russia. I think it's the best way to tell you what she told us at the briefing. She told us, we understood there was no money to borrow anymore. We understood that we had to close inside ourselves to the country. We understood that we had to release from the energy income dependence. And finally, we understood that we have to increase the local production to support the internal market. The only way for the stimulation for increasing the production was to decrease the key rate, which is now lower than the world average. And then as a result, inflation, inflation is a result, not the reason. As a result of this, inflation has been decreased successfully to the 4%, which was a target 4 years ago. And at the same time, the dollarization and stabilization has been managed successfully. Now, the GDP is near the world average, despite the fact that the Western pressure on the Russian economy. So on the slide, all in all, you see what have been achieved so far for the last 4 years in the Russian monetary policy. Why I told this? Let's imagine a pool filled with water. Water consists of money. And the pool is filled at the right-hand side by the government, making expenditures for the social projects for the public. And the left-hand side, central bank, by printing money, adjusting the key rate, trying to fill the pool. And the lowest level of the pool, you'll see 2 taps. One is taxes, another one deposits at the banks. And all these 4 instruments trying to adjust the level of the water, which is overflow of the water from the pool, means hyperinflation. The highest level of the water is the zero unemployment, and the volume of the water in the pool, we call it the volume of the economic activities in the country, or GDP at the country. Why I wanted to show this. It's very simple and symbolic picture for an engineer to understand the whole macroeconomic situation in a country, in any country. Cui bono. This is a Latin word, usually uses policeman to clarify the murderer. Cui bono, if you ask this question to who gets the best benefits from this? In the special economic zones, there are two sides interact with each other and takes benefits, which is the government and the other side investor. Government make expenses for the infrastructure, giving gas, electricity, and water near of your clear land plot with the less paperwork. On the other side, investors receive these advantages by using low-rated loans from the banks and build its factory. And finally, both sides enjoy additional workplaces, collecting taxes in a not gray, but the wide scale of economic activity and increase the production. Russian special economic zones today mostly adapted from the world's analogies from such as Manchester, München, Chicago, and Singapore. You know, copy and paste works. But when pasting, if you don't adapt to your conditions what you paste from the original place, regulations absolutely will not work for your country. Some of special economic zones in Russia now work very highly adapted to this level, but unfortunately some of them, which I cannot disclose their names because of their commercial reasons, are living as if 20 years ago. Lastly, we are human beings. We have 5 senses: see, touch, feel, hear, and taste. And the 6th one, I would say time. Time in a classic manner for a commerçant is money. Time is money. If you look to the modern Greek, look up to the modern Greek dictionary now, you will see 2 items for the time: chronos and chronos. First one is about what you see. Look at your watch and so you see the seconds and the minutes. The second one, how you feel the time. If you visit a place and don't feel the smell of the money as a commerçant with your senses, the project will most probably fail. If the main target of any investment is to decrease the costs and increase the profits, you need to study the real conditions happening out there. Of course, the first one is the raw material conditions in the regions. I mean, if your business is wood, you need a forest near of you. Sure. If you are dealing with agriculture, you need a black soil. If you are in an automotive industry, you should have supportive suppliers near of you, not after but before launching your factory. For this reason, in order to satisfy this understanding, I have been studying this issue for 4 months by visiting major special economic zones in Russia: Alabuga, Lipetsk, Kaluga, Stupino, and Yesipova is not it's an industrial park. Even I studied Kazakhstan, and I have gone Uzbekistan recently to get those senses. What I observed there: if you have the same conditions with the competitors, I mean the same conditions with in this tax supports from the government, infrastructure that the government brings to your land plot, gas, electricity, and water. without any charge. And the land cost, even school for kids, for expats, institutes, faculties for the workers, work permits even, provide them all kind of assistance for their need. There you have only one thing stays, is to increase your productivity. If all the conditions are the same with your competitors, stays only if you don't increase your productivity, you cannot compete with them. Today, every place I visited, I heard that productivity is the most important thing for the investors. They are not, tax issues and subsidies are not very interested. They are interested in the productivity. Because time goes faster than you imagine, you know. It costs very expensive than we perceived before. The only way to increase your productivity, there is only way remains to increase your productivity. So if you have 3.0 industry, you should jump into the 4.0. If you have 4.0, you should jump into the 5.0, because the time goes faster than we imagined before. I would be very happy to take your questions, but I'm afraid I'm running out my time and I should end my speech. Thank you so much for your patience.